So, went down to the store and bought a set of McPherson Strut spring compressors. Just these guys. It's pretty straightforward. There's several videos on how to use them online. Essentially, stick them in a couple of the springs here and use it to compress them down so that this doesn't go shooting off and that doesn't go shooting out the end. Once the springs are safely compressed, these ones, it's not super ideal, but you want to try to get them as spread out as possible so that it's not crunching all to one side as much as possible. Once you have them compressed, you're safe to pull the little rubber plug and loosen this top nut. I've done it already. Definitely easier if you lay it down on its side. I just stood it up to film real quick. Then once you get this off, this whole top hat section should come off and we should be able to separate the spring from the struts. And then at that point you could you should be able to release the tension on the springs before you go to put them back on, so that way you don't have them sitting around with loaded compression, because that's dangerous. You want to try to get this done as quickly as possible and get this loaded tension out of here. Alright, so brand new strut. This was just some cheap stuff I found on eBay. I believe the brand was TRD. This is a brand new strut. When you compress it, you can do it by hand. Push it in, and look at how fast it returns. You know, does a pretty decent job. Now, try to keep that clean. Set that aside carefully. Now this is the one that I've just taken the spring off of. Now let's see how it's doing. We'll go ahead and press that, and nothing. Nothing at all. Painfully slow. If anything at all. These were doing nothing. This is the story of about every single strut here. Quite sad. All blown. Just blown to bits. Dead tired.
Using that, or is that an old one?
Nope, this is an old one.
You have a new one?
Yep. I sure do.
Save these?
So I've got all the pieces I'm going to keep in here. Rear bump stops just in case. Some other bushings and rubbers and stuff from this old suspension setup, just in case anything's better than what I've got. Just because, yeah, you never know. You never know. Even though this stuff is pretty worn out, I imagine what I've got is probably in better shape, but we'll just make sure. So last we left off, I had cleaned up the springs and gotten them off of the old struts that were in nasty condition. Now I've gone ahead and I'm going to start with the rear, just because they're a little feistier to get out, it seems. This guy I've been arguing with for the last half hour, 45 minutes. PB Blaster helps, but it still took this breaker bar and a big fat 19mm socket to convince that guy to finally give up the ghost. But now it should be pretty free on the bottom here. Of course, you guys can't see that. That's perfect, of course. So now that I've got that big bolt out, this bottom portion down here is free. And I should be able to go and loosen up the top bolts, and we should be able to see about dropping this guy out of here. So I've found that when you're dropping these rear struts, it tends to be helpful if you get up in there and get these sway bar mounts unbolted. You can see that I've got this one already undone. It just makes sliding it out of here, so you can slide that guy back a little bit, and it makes dropping this out of here easier. Because once you get the spring compressors on here, you're real tight for space. And without the spring compressors on there, this whole thing springs down, and you got to start dropping a whole bunch of other stuff just to get the struts out. It's a pain. So yeah, use the spring compressors, undo those bolts up there, and move that guy. Just push it back towards the back of the car. Now, I went ahead and disassembled the top of the strut before I dropped it out. Makes things just a little bit easier, because this lip likes to get caught up on the inside of there, and the whole structure's just too long. So if you can get this portion of it to drop out of the center, the rest of it's a lot easier to get out. So I'm going to take a quick minute here to get all of these the compression off of these springs here. Make sure that's not a ticking time bomb. And then we'll get to putting together the passenger side rear strut with lowering springs and a new strut. And we need to test out the strut here, so go ahead and push it down, and well, that's definitely not a super solid there on the rebound. Definitely it's better than the other one, because I mean, you can actually see it move, but it's not ideal. It should come out a little quicker than that. So yeah, definitely probably a good thing I bought new struts for this. OEM TRD. Much tighter coils, lower, taller. Bad monster truck ride height. Much better, not so monster truckish ride height. I mean, it's not as low as I'd like it to be, but again, you know, it's not every day that TRD Lowering Springs walk in front of you, so I want to rock them for the time being. Definitely saves me some time and to get lowered, so I can save up for nice coilovers. Well, after some arguing, frustration, cursing, and a few stiff bolts, we've got lowering springs in here. TRD Lowering Springs. They look great, should function great. I'm going to leave this sway bar disconnected over here for the time being until I can get the other side done up. I might actually bolt it back in because I think I should have enough sway on the other side. So yeah, don't forget to bolt that back in. Got the driver's side compressed. I got that lower bolt broke loose. Got the top nut and this broke loose. Got all those mounting bolts broke loose. Take a quick break here. But passenger side's done. Driver's side is moving along. Well, just need a wheel on here and the rears will be done. Pretty stoked. There's a ton of dirt up in here. I need to clean this thing really bad. I knocked 10 tons of dirt out on the floor here. Nasty. Nasty, nasty, nasty. So I've got the rears all done. Can't really tell right now, but it's lower in the rear a little bit. But working on the fronts now. So got the passenger side dropped already. I'm gonna work on cleaning up this top mount here, and then I'm gonna put it back together and carry on. And much quicker than the rear, I have the front strut rebuilt with the TRD Lowering Springs on it, so we'll go ahead and get her thrown up in there and see about maybe getting the passenger side done or the driver's side done and calling it a night and having a lowered Celica. I'm not really documenting the whole, exactly what I'm doing, everything. There's a great how-to on how to do this. There's another guy that's done it with a Celica. And he did a really great video that showed exactly how to go through and do all this step by step. I'll leave a link to that in the video description. Well, after some finagling, we have got TRD kind of faded in the middle there. Lowering springs and new struts up front. The tie rod's ends are kind of a pain, but having a jack to jack this up and down, this whole system, works a charm. So I'm going to throw the wheel back on this one and move around to the other side and see if we can't get this finished off tonight. Well, and after a few hours, a couple nights of work, she's lowered. It's kind of hard to tell from this angle, but it definitely rides lower. The gaps are not nearly as large as they once were, so I'm hopefully gonna pull it out tomorrow if it's not too crappy out, and hopefully I'll be able to get some better shots of it. But it was worth it. It already looks better than it did.